Hello everyone, Sam here from Mind Body Medical. Hope you guys are all well. So welcome to day 8 of the 12 days of Ayurveda, where every day we're overviewing one real gift that Ayurveda gives us at this festive time of the year. And today's gift is all about Ayurvedic aphrodisiacs and the science of aphrodisiacs, and also the really mind-blowingly powerful health benefits of sex. And I want to talk about that because it's something that's really integral to the Ayurvedic framework and to Ayurvedic medicine in general. Because in Ayurveda, there's something called the 3 pillars of health. The 3 pillars of health. And the 3 pillars of health are food, sleep, and sex. And the reason for that is that if you take any one of those away, very soon, we as humans and as a human race will cease to exist. We can't exist without food, we can't exist without sleep, and without procreation, we would obviously, become extinct. So the 3 pillars of health in Ayurveda, they stress the importance of optimal diet, optimal sleep, and a really healthy, sex life, sexual activity. And because of that, Ayurveda has a whole discipline to do with sex. It has a whole science. It can become an area of clinical expertise. It has a whole science dedicated to aphrodisiacs and the use of aphrodisiacs, which are now very evidence-based, as a way of really increasing sexual energy, sexual well-being, sexual health, sexual pleasure. And it's something that I think is really important. And we'll talk about the mind-blowing health benefits of sex in a minute. But in our clinic, somewhere between 65 and 70% of the adults we work with will say that they're in a relationship where they feel distanced, they feel disconnected from their partner, they're not sexually active. And that's really important because sex is only healing if it's enjoyable, if it's forced, if it's not there with connection. If the body isn't actually asking for it, then it doesn't have these healing properties. So the whole field of aphrodisiacs is about really supporting sexual health, and it's a huge area within Ayurveda, and it's a whole discipline. But what's so interesting is that there's this very clear Western evidence as to why these tonics and these herbal medicines that Ayurveda is used as aphrodisiacs for thousands of years are proven to work. But before we talk about those aphrodisiacs, I just want to kind of run through very briefly some of the health benefits of sex. Because, if you look at health benefits, things like exercise, meditation, yoga, they come with all of these benefits. And sex absolutely sits up on the same pedestal as those other self-care practices. It's like reeling off the benefits of sex is just mind-blowing in terms of how powerfully health promoting it is on the body and the mind. So I'm going to give you a snapshot of a few things that sex is clinically linked to. The first thing, we know it lowers blood pressure. We know having sex 2 to 3 times a week, and that seems to be the magic number. If you look at the research we're talking about now, it seems that 3 times a week is where the health benefits really, really kick in. Okay, 3 to 4 times a week, you get this exponential gain. So we know regular sex lowers blood pressure, which is essential. A really interesting study around the anti-aging effects of regular sex. So a very powerful study was done looking at the chemicals and the hormones that is released during sex and during orgasm. And what that shows is the chemicals, they rejuvenate skin health and they prevent wrinkles and they affect the chemistry and function of the skin to such an extent that in one randomized trial, women and men who were sexually active 3 or more times a week were rated objectively and independently as on average 12 years younger than their actual age, which is a massive reduction, in our in our age appearance in terms of our skin health, our muscle tone, and our elasticity. So it's very anti-aging. A really big one, if perhaps one of the most important benefits of sex, is the impact it has upon relationship status. Very clear evidence that couples, partners who are in a sexually active and happy relationship, they feel more connected, they feel happier, they feel safer, there's more trust, there's more intimacy, there's more sense of this person has my back. If you look at all of the markers and variables of a happy, safe relationship, regular sex increases all of those. So as a way of strengthening relationships, particularly as the relationship ages, as it goes from that novel stage, that honeymoon stage, into long-term relationships, sex is a really great way of maintaining the integrity of that relationship, and the evidence is very clear around that. We know that regular sex lowers prostate cancer risks in men. We know it prevents and alleviates and reduces the risks of PMS and menopausal symptoms in women. Really topical this time of the year, sex and orgasm increases our immune counts, and there's evidence to show that after, if we're having sex 2, 3, 4 times a week, we have on average a 30% increase in certain immune cells, and we have a lower prevalence of infections than people who are sexually inactive. We know perhaps one of the most important research and powerful research is the link between sex and anxiety and depression. So big studies have shown that people who are sexually active in safe relationships, they have higher levels of mental well-being, they have higher levels of contentment and happiness, and significantly lower levels of stress, anxiety, and clinical depression. And that evidence is incredibly strong. Very interesting research around longevity. And I was just reading this actually about an hour ago. So one study, which was a really powerful study, looked at men and women who were sexually active at least 3 times a week in their relationship. And they followed them up over a 7-year period, so a longitudinal study. At the end of the study, they looked at the people who were sexually active against the people who weren't. And how's this for an outcome? The people who were sexually active 3 times a week on average, they were 50% less likely to die of a medical reason, so an illness or a disease, than those who weren't as sexually active. A 50% reduction in dying from disease, from cancers, heart disease, etc., just through being sexually active 3 times a week. I mean, that is a win-win. 50% reduction. Powerful research from Queen's University in Belfast showed that people who were sexually active 3 times a week had a 52% reduction in heart attacks and strokes over a 10-year period. Again, our biggest killer, heart disease, strokes and heart diseases, reducing that by 52% by having sex 3 times a week. And also, in terms of actual relevance and pragmatic use, this is a really interesting study. Morning sex. So they've done research in New York looking at people who have sex in the morning. And because of the oxytocin, because of the feel-good hormones we get by having sex in the morning, those feel-good hormones, they saturate the body over the course of the day. So it lifts us up, and that elevation of well-being has been shown to last for about 7 or 8 hours, so most of the working day. So in terms of reducing stress, reducing anxiety, reducing fatigue, and increasing happiness, increasing health, increasing peace, increasing calmness, just making us feel the best versions of ourselves, having sex in the morning changes our biochemistry to make us feel better over the course of the day. So that's just a win-win. So there's loads more benefits, but they were the real headlines. So if you look at what that means, it's saying we've got this innate system in the body that responds very, very powerfully to the changes that sex induces in our body. And we all need to be benefiting from that as best we can. And that's why Ayurveda has this science of the aphrodisiacs, because anyone's capacity for anything waxes and wanes. Sometimes we feel like exercising, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we feel like eating healthy, sometimes we don't. And it's the same with sex. We all have different cycles and different kind of ebbs and flows. And the science of aphrodisiacs is, how do we maintain that sexual energy? How do we maintain sexual performance? How do we get maximum pleasure from sex, physically and emotionally, through the use of aphrodisiacs? And there's lots of aphrodisiacs. There's aphrodisiacs from all those different herbal systems of the world. And within Ayurveda, I want to talk about one in particular, which is probably a lesser known herbal medicine. Some of you may not have heard of it. And there's dozens of aphrodisiacs. But the one that is most powerful from the Ayurvedic perspective, and it's backed up most robustly by the Western evidence, is a herb called Gokshura. And it's a tonic herb. So it's equally effective for men as it is for women. So in men, it's been shown to increase testosterone levels. It's been shown to increase the conversion of testosterone. It's been shown to increase sexual performance. And kind of a whole range of benefits. In women, it increases the female sex hormones. increases libido, increases desire. But the really big thing about Gokshora is, research that was done 3 years ago that talks about the effects of Gokshora on increasing nitric acid levels in the body. And nitric acid, the discovery of nitric acid won the Nobel Prize a few years back. But nitric acid is integral to sexual function in the body, because as nitric acid levels increase, it increases blood flow to the reproductive organs. It increases the pleasure we get from sex. It increases arousal. It increases orgasm quality, orgasm prevalence. So Gokshora, all of the reasons it's been used in Ayurveda is being powerfully supported by this robust Western evidence. And in clinic, it's the one herb that we turn to again and again if people are suffering with low libido, low interest in sex, really wanting to increase their sex life with their partner, but just don't feel like they've got that desire. Gokshora is just brilliant for that. And it's either a vicious circle or a virtuous circle, because the less sex we have, the more disconnected we feel from our partner. The more disconnected we feel, the less we want sex, and that goes on ad infinitum. Whereas if we have sex, we feel more connected, which means we want to have more sex. So it's kind of vicious or virtuous circles. So if you're looking for support around that and aphrodisiacs, then Gokshora would be absolutely the first herb that I would recommend. You don't need much of it, about 1,000 milligrams a day, 500 in the morning, 500 milligrams or 1 capsule in the morning, and again in the evening. It's incredibly safe. It's got a very low side effect profile. There are other aphrodisiacs. Ashwagandha is a powerful aphrodisiac. Shatavari is a powerful aphrodisiac. So they will be the 3 that I recommend. Karen, really good point. What about single people? So what's interesting is that there's almost like a 2-tier system. So virtually all of the benefits I've just spoken about from sex actually come about through the process of orgasm. So whether that's orgasming on your own or in a relationship or in a partnership, it doesn't really matter. There's evidence to suggest the health benefits of orgasm is greater, together. But singular orgasm, on your own, is very similar. There's hardly any difference. So every single person who is single can still absolutely tap into and obtain every single benefit that we've just spoken about. With that, there's very clearly the science of sex and sex research. There's whole medical journals dedicated to this subject, and there's a very clear kind of delineation between orgasming on your own or in a pairing, and there's hardly any difference. So being on your own, being single, isolating on your own because of COVID, it doesn't take away these benefits. Okay, so sex is this idea of these 3 pillars: food, sleep, and sex. They've been these 3 pillars of health in Ayurveda for so long, and for very good reason. And in the same way, we need to really try and optimize our diet and optimize our sleep. We should be looking at how do we improve our sex life, because it comes with so many benefits. And I think that connection you get with someone, if you are in a relationship with them, all sex does is improve that. As a couple, as an individual, emotionally, physically, it's just an absolute win-win. Okay, so I guess the big takeaway from this is that the science, the field of aphrodisiacs and sex, it's not kind of Kama Sutra and all kind of under the carpet. It's a genuine scientific field. It's a clinical discipline that comes with so many benefits. So Friday night, Holly was talking about calling this video "Get Your Freak on Friday." I thought maybe we shouldn't call it that, but I guess that's the takeaway message from this video: is use aphrodisiacs to spice things up, kind of get the mojo back, and obtain all of these profound benefits. So other than that, I hope you guys are all well. Have a lovely evening and a lovely weekend, and I will speak to you all soon. Take care.